Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to Everything RV with Dave. Crappy day in West Virginia. No RVing, no bicycle riding. But I think I'm going to take a little ride down the river. That's the Ohio River. Going through some very small, quaint towns with a little bit of history. Heading to the hardest thing to do in the world, Wheeling, West Virginia. So I'm on my way to Wheeling, West Virginia, the home of the WWVA Jamboree. Some of the old timers might remember that. They're still operating though. So even as though it's a crappy day, sit back and enjoy the ride. Let me show you a little bit about the river towns of West Virginia. You look off to the left here. This is right along the Ohio River. You can see the massive cliff to the left. That used to come way out. The Department of Highways removed I don't know how many thousands of tons of earth just to make it so that it was safe to be on Route 2 heading south from Weirton, West Virginia towards Wheeling. We're coming up on one of the steel mills of the many around this area. Surprisingly, it's still working a little bit. Not like it was in the heyday. You know, 35, 40 years ago, this place was rocking. Yeah, just here on the right. Yeah, I can remember back in the 60s, the sulfur smell coming through this area. It was almost unbearable. But kept a lot of people in work. Kept a lot of families close, fed, but those were the bygone days. There's not much going on in the steel industry in around this area anymore, or many other areas around the United States. Right now we're heading into the little town of Follansbee. That's Follansbee, West Virginia. And I guess maybe its claim to fame is the Irish of Notre Dame. One of their football coaches, Lou Holtz, this is where he's from. He's from Follansbee, West Virginia, this little dinky town. It's a pretty little town, but Lou Holtz from the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. This is where he was from. I know it's kind of cloudy, but you can see that we are, you know, kind of like down off of the mountain. You can see the mountains off to the left. We're actually running the river basin. Nice little town though, very quiet. Not much going on. Notice the old street clock here on the right hand side. Those are something you don't see very often. You can catch a glimpse of the river every now and then. Yeah, for people that don't really know, the Ohio River running from Pittsburgh, which is where the Ohio is formed, you know, this was the main travel route. You know, back in the 1700s when the frontiersmen were starting to move west, you know, they would run their flatboats down the river, and that's why a lot of these towns were actually developed. Wheeling, which was a noted town to stop in, and it's because of the coal and steel in this area. Wheeling, West Virginia was noted for the nail capital of the world. They made the flat nails. out of steel. And anybody that was heading west, they needed to have nails, you know, to build what they were going to build whenever they got to wherever they wanted to be. So, you know, Wheeling, West Virginia was a very important town for people to stop to get supplies and to pick up their nails, probably a little bit of whiskey. But the importance of the Ohio River and the Mississippi, something that helped build this country, is the river systems. And this is Wellsburg, West Virginia. And it's kind of an interesting town. When Lewis and Clark was commissioned to travel west and explore, they actually came down the Ohio River, and they ended up pulling in at Wellsburg, West Virginia. Now right here is probably where Lewis and Clark pulled in. This is, I'll say, the wharf area for Wellsburg. And don't know exactly how or why, but one of the residents of Wellsburg, his name was Jonathan Glass. He ended up being one of the members of the party, which, you know, was trying to work its way west, trying to eventually get to the Pacific Ocean. But Jonathan Glass was on that expedition, and he was from this little town of Wellsburg, West Virginia. So, you know, Lewis and Clark was actually here on their way. They're making their way to Missouri. Kind of an interesting fact. This is a area just south of Wellsburg where they just put a new bridge across the Ohio River, connecting this part of West Virginia to Ohio. And it's really been quite an engineering marvel the way they've had to do this because of the limited space on the West Virginia side. If you take a look to our left, I mean, there's a mountain, and to the right is the river. Somehow they had to get north and south of Route 2 to get up on the bridge, you know, in a limited amount of space. And right up here, you kind of get an idea of what they're doing. There's the new bridge. And I want you to take a look at the smoke coming out of that stack. That smoke, that's burning coal. And I'm seriously, look at the smoke. It's white. And it's dissipating within 35, 40 feet outside of the tower. Actually, that power plant right there is where my brother worked for, oh, I don't know, probably 35 years. He spent a lot of time in that plant. So you can see here to the right, they have literally built the road out, filled it all in, you know, just to make this a wider area so that they can get up onto the bridge. That bridge was a lot of years in the making. And it's actually going from this side, which is, I mean, there's really not anything over here, over to the other side, which really is not that populated. I guess you do have the power plant. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens years from now with that new bridge. People that are not familiar with West Virginia, we're not all hicks. You know, we are a little bit laid back. We're a little bit quieter lifestyle. But if you get a chance, drive through West Virginia. I think you will be amazed at how nice, peaceful, and quiet and serene it is. Now we're coming into the little town of Beach Bottom. I have no idea why they called it Beach Bottom. I'm very familiar with this little town. This little town, my work was with vacuum sewage collection. I worked for a company that actually manufactured and designed the systems. So when systems went into the ground, the municipalities, the contract, the state, whoever, the city, whoever they did it, they could ask to have somebody from my company be there to make sure that they were doing it correctly. And that's what I did. I traveled the world. And as I got older and retired, I bought an RV and kept traveling. But that little town, we're now out of it, they have a air vacuum system. Before the interstates, back in the 50s and in the 40s, these are the roads that people traveled on. This is a state highway. It's called Route 2. Runs all the way along the Ohio River. There's another steel mill that pretty much dead in the water. It's a real shame what we did in this country to our steel industry. I mean, there's people that are still working here, but there's not much being done. But thousands of people worked here. Up and down the river, all the way down into Wheeling. It used to be Wheeling Steel, then it was Wheeling Pit Steel. Now, right up here a little ways, we will come into the Pike Island Dam. These dams that are here now, I would say they were really being built in the 70s, 80s, maybe even into the 90s. But years ago, the Ohio River had very many small dams. Dams are 3 or 4 feet difference in elevation. And then to help control the floodwater, they removed all those small dams and put in much larger dams. This dam at Pike Island, you'll see it up here in a minute. It's 17 feet, 16 feet difference from one pool of water to the other. And what that allows them to do is go like 20 or 25 miles or longer before they have to put another dam. The old dam system was like 10, 12 miles away. So it was the barge traffic, so many more locks to lock through, even though it wasn't that long to raise and lower it, because they were only raising it 3 and 4 or 5 feet. It helped the barge traffic. It also helped in controlling the floodwaters. But believe me, up and down this river, there's still floods, plenty of floods. I've been in probably 6 or 7 in myself, my family. It's really an interesting situation when the water keeps rising and it gets in your basement and starting to head to the first floor. So just up here on the right-hand side, you can start making it out slightly. You'll see the dam, and you'll see, the height of the water on this side. And if we're lucky, we might see a barge coming through. I'll pull into the parking lot so you can see the difference from one side to the other. It is rather interesting, how they help control the flood situation on the rivers. I don't see a barge trying to get through. And and it looks like they've got the gates open, letting some water out because it has been raining. And I would say right now that we're probably, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 feet, so they're letting a lot of water out. Back in my day, back in the 60s, the dam was about 4 miles south of here, and it was called the Warwood Dam. And this was my playground, folks. When I was a child, when I was 12, 13 years old, this was where I went to play. I played on the Ohio River. I've owned boats since I was, 13 years old. Little motorboats, rowboats, canoes. I would take my little rowboat and then my little hydroplane, my little race boat, which weighed about 80 pounds, through some of the old dams. They would allow me to come through. Really rather interesting. Imagine today, folks allowing their children. I mean, I would leave at 9 in the morning and wouldn't be back till 6 at night. I could be anywhere within 12 miles on the Ohio River. I mean, you talk about Tom Sawyer, I think I actually lived it. The City of Wheeling Heritage Trail, or the Pioneer Trail. And again, it runs from that little town of Wellsburg all the way down to the south end of Wheeling, West Virginia. We're now coming into the little town of Warwood, which is actually considered a part of Wheeling, West Virginia. But us local people think of it as a small little town of Warwood, and another little river town. Compared to a lot of places, I guess our gas is pretty cheap. $3.29 for regular. I know there's places in the country that it's a little cheaper, but there's a lot of places in the country where it's much more expensive. You should have seen these places in the heyday, when the streets were crowded and people were out scuffling around. Just to the right here, you'll see that there's a beautiful little park here. This is another little river town that was, again, people that lived here, probably 70% of them worked either in coal mines or steel industry. Now, even though you can't see it, but just in behind this area where McDonald's is, over on the river, that's where the old Warwood Dam was. This place right here was a foundry, another steel area. And then if you take a look to the right, you'll see the Heritage Trail. Here it's running right along Route 2, heading south. These were my stomping grounds back when I grew up. I grew up on Wheeling Island, which is, I believe it's still one of the largest inhabited inland islands in the world. Right in the middle of the Ohio River. You talk about floods. I've seen it where we had 3 feet of water on every street on the island. Okay, right up here where this red light is, that actually starts the north end of Wheeling. Again, we called it North Wheeling. They used to have a Catholic hospital here. It since has shut down, moved. They did build some nice housing in through here, which was very nice. The one thing you want to look at as I drive down through here, some of the structures, you know, the Victorian type structures, even though they're old and some of them need to be updated, you know, these structures, they're early American. You know, Victorian. If you look on the right-hand side right here, you know, some of these homes were owned by the businessmen of Wheeling, you know, back in the 1800s. My house on the island, in 1961, my dad bought it, and they went back 175 years and still could not find when they originally built the house. It was the slave house to the mansion on the island. So, you know, guess which house was built first? So I literally grew up in a slave house. You look off to the right and you'll see the Capitol Music Hall. That's where WWVA Jamboree, you know, from the 20s. Yes, you can see it right now, the Capitol Music Theater. Now, just here where they have all this construction is the suspension bridge. And that bridge was, at one time, the longest suspension bridge in the world. That bridge was in the 1850s. I'm going to tell you right now, they got Wheeling torn up. I haven't been down here for quite a few years. I don't know if that's good or bad to get all this construction going on. Looks like they're doing water or sewer or something. Oh, that's drainage pipe. They are putting in storm drains. Maybe there's bigger things for Wheeling. I hope when they finish this project that they revitalize the downtown area a little bit. We're going to be going over this little bridge here, which is a stone interlocking bridge. Well, we're now coming down to the southern part of Wheeling. We just drove through the whole town. I hope you've enjoyed this little video of a little ride down the river. If you did, give me a like, give me a subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.